Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Without further ado, let's talk about the Game 2 of the final of the Samsung Cup 2025. Ding Hao is playing as black and Liao Yuanhe is playing as white, and the game starts out like this. Black approaches, white defends, black plays the Sansan joseki, white blocks, black crawls, white invites the flying knife joseki, black refutes that and just play out the most standard and the safest joseki. White decides to immediately follow up with a corner. Black blocks, white cuts, and here black decides to simply Atari. Now another choice for black is to Atari on the second line, but this would not be so appropriate in this game. The reason is because the ladder doesn't work for black. For example, if they play out the standard joseki, we will realize that at this point, when black plays the Keima, white can immediately ladder the stone. Because black doesn't have a good ladder breaker, this is a slightly better position for white. So this is not a great position for black if black doesn't have a serious ladder breaker. That's why in the actual game, black did not choose to Atari on the second line. Instead, black chooses another one of the main variations. White Atari and black just captures, right? In this game, we can see that Ding Hao is very cautious, right? He simply takes here. Normally, we would see another joseki, which is to Atari like this. When white connects, then black extends out. And this is the fighting variation. In this game, black decides to play very safe and cautious and just capture here, which I don't see quite a lot because now we see white controls the entire outside. The reason that this is actually a joseki is because black is completely alive. So it's a clean alive. Black doesn't have to worry about the corner anymore. Black has points, but also later on, black can look for tactics or moves like these to peep at white's weakness. So white's influence is not that strong, right? Later on, black can go for some counterattack. In the actual game, black plays the Keima, and with this move, it really shocked me a little bit because I would definitely have played the Keima towards the left side to limit white's influence. But these days, professionals just have, different theories. White approaches, black defends, and here white decides to approach the corner on the top right. Black decides to pincer. White pincers from behind because white doesn't want black to get a two-space extension. For example, if you play out something in a corner, right? Let's just say we play out something, but eventually if black gets the two-space extension or the Keima here, then this P becomes more and more realistic, right? If ever, let's just illustrate this. If ever black gets a peep over here, right, and white has to connect, then this is a very good exchange for black. And this is not something that white wants to see. So to prevent all that from happening, white decides to counter pincer, not only pincering the stone, but also protecting white's influence over here. Black decides to jump out. And the next move, white plays the attach over here. This is something that I have covered a long time ago, right? Before I started, working on this YouTube channel again this year. But in that video, I covered some of the variations, and I said that, first of all, if black blocks here, then white can clamp. And if black extends out, then white can extend into the corner, right? This is all theory. And here, if black goes for the push and cut, then white can Atari over here. Black Atari, white takes, and black blocks on the second line. Here, white can push on top. This is looking at the Atari here, right? So black cannot Tanuki. If black Tanuki, then I can cut and then Hane. So this would be a disaster, which means that black needs to add another move to secure the corner. And at this point, we can see that white was able to gain a very strong group here that's going to threaten the two stones that black has. So black probably does not want to see this outcome. So this is all theory. Now, if black plays the Hane here, this is a slightly better variation. But in this particular case, because black has two stones on the outside, this variation is not very satisfactory for black either because white can clamp into the corner. Black Hane, white Atari, black connects. White now Atari on the second line. These are all like textbook moves and you can't really mess up the order, right? If you have to play every move precisely to reach an equal position. So white connects here. Black has to prevent the turn here, right? Like if you just claim the profit, then white is very happy. White can first of all exchange this and then come out. And we can see that white is very efficient with a lot of territory. It used to be 4 stones versus 1, But now white was able to get this result. So that's not acceptable for black. So when white connects, black has to connect. And white crawls at the 2-2 to kill the 2 stones. Here black Atari first. Very, very important exchange before you sacrifice the 2 stones. Right? So if you didn't sacrifice 2 stones, then you will not be able to exchange the Hane with the connect. So the result of this is I think this is a slightly better position for white, especially for human players, because first of all, white gets solid territory, but also there's a cutting point lingering here, right? So maybe black doesn't have to worry about the cutting point right now, but eventually this is going to be a problem. When white cuts here, it's going to cause a little bit issue on both sides. So black is not very thick here, and therefore this is a better, I think the better position from a human perspective for white. Which is why in the actual game, black simply extends at the 3-4, which I really liked. This move seems to be a bad exchange for black, but actually it isn't, right? Because this move also helps protecting the territory a lot more. Because, for example, the slide in, right, that doesn't work anymore. I have a stone here, means I can attach you, right? You can't come into my corner anymore. So this move comes at a cost. Now, when I was watching this position, I was like, I would definitely have played the attach here, right? That's just my personal preference, and I would like to recommend this move to my viewers as well, especially if you're in a single digit queue, because it's a lot easier to manage. All what you need to do is to play out the joseki move, just attach and Hane, right? So here, if black Atari on top, then we can just connect. Black connects, and we can capture the stone in the corner, right? Of course, we don't want to pull the stone back, because that means we have to run for life, which is not pleasant. So it's better we just sacrifice this stone here. Black extends, white blocks, black turns, and then white Hane. Black now pushes through, and here white captures the corner. We can see white has a very nice corner with a lot of points, and black has more or less a bit of, over concentration, I can say, especially with a jump over here. It's a valuable move, but it seems a little over concentrated. So I like this position as white. And I would highly recommend my viewers to play like this if you don't understand this move that much. All right, so in the actual game, black extends, and white now jumps over here. Black plays the wedge. This is almost a sente because next move I'm going to Hane. And the next move I really like. White simply jumps out. Here, a bad idea would be playing this type of Atari because only strengthens black and create a bunch of weaknesses for white. So white, but here if white just extends like this, that's also very slow. So the best move is what white played. It makes a lot of sense. I'm not really afraid of any wedges, right? First of all, this wedge doesn't work. There's a double Atari. If you wedge over here, then I can Atari and connect back, and there's no problem. So very efficient move by white. And the next move, black plays the jump over here. This is really putting maximum pressure on white, and this is a very tough move, very tough for white to deal with. Basically, the reason it's tough to deal with is usually the shape move for white to play is to jump like this, looking at the cutting, the peep over here and the double cutting point. The problem with this jump is it creates a lot of over concentration for white. Black can now just play somewhere else, and later on, black can play something like this. And we can see white's shape is just not pleasant. There's still a clamp over here, right? This shape is just very inefficient. So white doesn't want to over concentrate, right? If you play here, that's also over concentration, right? This is not doing much. So this puts white in an awkward spot, but sometimes when you're in an awkward spot, the best move to play is actually to tanuki, and that's exactly what white did. White decides to jump or cap black inside, kind of, right, with this move, trying to attack black as a whole, which is a very efficient move. Black decides to attack the stone. Of course, white cannot allow black to capture that stone, therefore he plays the attach. Black Hane, and white now cuts. Black Atari on top, and white connects. Here, another option at this point is for white to play a very aggressive tiger's mouth. This move obviously takes a lot of courage as well, right? Because this is a very fierce move, right? From this point, the game will become super chaotic, and it's a lot of fighting. Because at this point, black likely is going to Atari first, white connects, and black plays out the tiger's mouth. Because you can't block anymore, you have too many cutting points. So you have to play the tiger's mouth at this point. White pierces through, Black plays the tiger's mouth. White has to respond to that. Black peeps, white connects, and now black jumps out, completely separating the two groups and try to attack each group. But it's the same story for black, because when white peers through here, white is also attacking two groups, right? So it's like a complete chaos where 4 dragons are fighting each other's, which is going to be very exciting. This is not what was played in the game. White decided to play a little bit more cautious because it's the final, right? We can't just go into those crazy fights where our fate is decided by pure, luck, or it's just a pure gamble. So white cuts over here, black Atari, white connects, and here black plays the wedge to strengthen the shape over here and cause shape problems for white. White Atari, black connects, and white now plays out the tiger's mouth. This cutting point is so serious that white has to fix it right now. Black bumps into white, white Atari, black connects, white pushes through, black Hane on top, white cuts, black Atari, white extends. The idea for black to Atari here is to extend one more liberty to cause maximum Aji, because if you just have 2 liberties, then there's not much you can do. So by sacrificing one more stone, black is able to get moves like this, Atari and then Hane here, causing a lot of problems for white. White captures the stone on the 3rd line, and the next move really surprised me. I think 99.9% of my viewers would just play out these without thinking. It looks so awesome for black. How can you resist the temptation of playing this? When I saw Ding Hao not playing this, I just gained so much respect because that takes willpower, not playing the Atari and Atari, because we know those are absolute sente that white has to respond to. And this is probably what black should have played. I mean, why do you not play these out? This is a purely, just better exchange for black, right? And then here, what black can do is to Hane here, and then cause some shape problem for white. For example, if white plays like this, then we can Atari. We're looking at, 2 cutting points. So this is going to cause some problems for white, right? If white connects, we can see there's a ko here, right? So that's the idea for black to play like this. Now, in the actual game, the reason black does not exchange these right away is because he thought even if white plays a move here, that wouldn't be big enough, right, for this type of early game. So he just decided to play in the center, strengthening the cutting stone. But then immediately, Liao Yuanhe takes this move away from black, right? And that's a typical strategy. When your opponent leaves something hanging, you just takes it to deny that. And that would cause a lot of psychological challenge, I would say, for your opponent. Because it's almost like saying, hey, you forgot this, now you can't get it anymore. All right, interesting. So at this point, black plays the attach, trying to challenge white's shape over here. White Hane, black pushes, white connects. Black Atari, white flip Atari from the outside. Some of my viewers might connect over here, but this is not the game of Go, right? Because when black Atari here, this very important stone is lost and white's shape is terrible. So white can definitely not play like that. The flip Atari is the better shape here. Black takes, white connects, and black Atari. White Atari, black takes, and here white has to fix this cutting point by extending. The result of this fight is that this is more or less an equal position moving forward. We can see that black secured the group in the center, and white managed to more or less capture the 4 stones over here. There's still some Aji remaining, but I don't think black can actually push out and just let white. For example, if black does that, it would be too risky, right? Even if black managed to survive, white will get so much strength over here to build on the right side. So black cannot play like that right now. All right. Next up, they decide to play somewhere else, right? Because the board is still so empty. White extends. Black now pincers. White pincers from behind, and black placed 1 space jump to put maximum pressure on white's 2 stones. White hops out with a 2 space jump. That is a very standard move. This is just a typical move to get your stones out in a very light way. And there's not really any cutting point immediately because we can see the squeeze here is a sente for white. So this is the right shape. Black decides to poke at the shape from the outside. And here white jumps, not only suppressing black, but also strengthening his own shape. Black crawls and white extends. Black crawls again, white blocks. Black turns, white plays the tiger's mouth, and here black decides to immediately cut this off Very important for black to cut here. Otherwise, when white plays out something like this, this all becomes territory. And these guys are just dead. Yeah, and white just spends one move to do all of that. That's not acceptable for black. Black has to cut here, white extends, and here black comes into white's moyo. Otherwise, when white jumps here, it's going to be a lot of moyo. So black decides to suppress that right now. White turns to kill the 4 stones, and black Hane in the center. The idea of playing this Hane, it looks like it's a move that's really close to black's own thick group, but the idea is to trying to kind of block white toward, basically separate this line and make sure that white is on the right side and then attack white. But also this move is strengthening stone over here. It's also kind of indirectly supporting his group over here, right? So this is a very nice move. White double Hane, black cuts, white connects, and black flip Atari. This is a very aggressive move by black. White extends and black blocks. And here white turns, black connects, and white jumps over here. And we have another very, very chaotic fight breaking out. And the board is looking more and more chaotic because with this jump, not only black's three stones are, they have to run, but also these 3 guys are also in trouble. But if black can somehow, try to separate here, then white is also in trouble, and also these white guys also gonna have problems. All right, so before all that, black decides to attach over here and strengthen his group on the bottom. White Hane, black Hane on top. This is a very aggressive move by black, right? It looks like it's not a great move because white can Atari here, right? And when black connects, white connects, we can see that black is just broken into pieces. But Ding Hao actually has his own idea. He pushes on top, white turns, and black keeps pushing, white keeps extending. We can see that black sacrificed a bunch of territory. But what is the objective, by black? Let's see. So black Atari here, white connects, and black plays a tiger's mouth. So black spends another move to secure this line, right? He builds a very thick influence. And we can see this influence is really pointing at white's dragon over here. Now here is a very important point, right? And I really like this point because a lot of times I see some commentators love to talk about win rates, right? Anytime they talk about games like, oh, this player lost 5% here, and this is so bad, and stuff like that. I personally, maybe you love that kind of commentary, but I personally cannot do that type of commentary because it's so hard to understand and it's so not fair to the players because they are playing on the board. They don't have an AI, and it's the price for the championship is like $300,000 and the amount of stress they're going through is absolutely insane, right? So the commentators would be saying, hey, here you should just Atari here, right? And that's the obvious move, and AI gives you the best win rate with this move, right? But then if you ask the commentators to go sit on the board, okay, and they don't have the AI anymore, and the next move, okay, you play like this, gives you the best win rate. What you gonna do if black plays here, right? Black builds such a thick wall over here, and now black is going for the kill, right? If I was playing as white, I would feel the chill in my spine. I would be freaking out right now because after this move, even if I magically manage to live the dragon, what's gonna happen to this piece of territory, right? Is black gonna gain like 40, 50 points over here? I have no idea, right? And this is exactly what the players were worried about. AI would have no problem dealing with something like this. But we are not AI, right? So that's why I don't commentate. I only use AI when it's like a life and death problem where I can get like an accurate solution, just like a math problem. But when it comes to middle game and direction and everything, it's not. I'm not a big fan of just checking win rates because, yeah, as I said, right, when Ding Hao sees this picture in his mind, he's probably scared because it looks very scary. You have maybe one eye on top, definitely not 2 eyes, and then you have to run towards this wall over here, right? If you take, first of all, I can extend, right? If you keep pushing, I can just block like this, and we can see there's no way you can connect back home, right? I'm definitely gonna seal this line and make sure you cut off. Not to say that maybe I can be even more aggressive. Who cares about what happens here? I'm trying to kill the dragon, right? So this is very scary for white. And that's why even if blocking here would give you the best win rate, I completely understand the next move that white plays. It's a very human move, very understandable, and I think it's a very good move because white plays a jump here, losing some win rate, but making sure that he's not scared. He's not, he doesn't have to worry about life and death, right? In a final game. All right, next up we have black Atari over here. White connects, black connects, and here white decides to push out. White obviously has to push out, so black blocks, white cuts, and black extends out. Here white Atari, black Atari, and white takes. And at this point, finally, black gets this super giant move. This is a must-play move at this point in the game, right? If black plays somewhere else, there's a big chance that white now, because white has a move already, so white now is probably going to gamble on the life and death and just extend down. And this would be very awkward for black because, first of all, you have to go try to kill the dragon. Likely you can't kill it because white already prepared one move. Now, if you can't kill white's dragon, then what's waiting for you, right, is something like this. White goes into your corner, and then white is trying to kill your corner dragon, right? So that's going to be very tough for black to deal with. So absolutely, very well played by Ding Hao. But he played this Hane over here. White Hanes, black connects, and white actually has the answer. So now it means that black was able to get a Sente, which is huge in terms of territory. Okay, and at this point, black decides to Atari on the second line. Very nice move. Trying to put pressure on white's corner. White's corner is going to have a little bit of issues after this Atari. Now, white decides to play the Keima here because, as we said, eventually white still has to add moves to make sure his dragon is fine. So why not do it now? He plays over here, also put pressure on black's 3 stones. Black takes the Ko, and white extends down, making sure his corner is strong with this second line Hane and connect back home. Black plays the wedge in the center, white Atari, black connects, and white obviously has to connect the stone over here because this is the most important stone. But then black can capture the 3 stones in the center, but that's not so bad because now white gets the move to play the 2 space jump, forming a nice square in the center. Not only live the dragon, but also forming a nice square of territory. So at this point, the game is still more or less equal, right? Both players played insanely well, insanely good quality as well. I would say till this point, no obvious mistakes from each side, and the game is going to be decided by middle to late game. Next up, black plays the second line Keima. This is an absolute must play move because otherwise when white blocks here, it pressures the corner and it's a lot of territory. So black has to play here. White connects, black has to connect to prevent the push, and white now plays the Kosumi to secure the center square. Black plays the extension, white plays the tiger's mouth to protect like the center. And here, black pushes over here. White has to answer that. And after 20 minutes, I think, Ding Hao decided to start a Ko here. And we have a very interesting fight. The idea of starting this Ko is obviously trying to threaten the life and death of white's corner. White takes, black Atari, that's an absolute Ko threat. White connects, black takes back, and here white plays the Kosumi. It doesn't look like a Ko threat, but actually it is a Ko threat. For example, if black just takes the Ko, right, this looks very nice for black, but white hopping in like this is a lot of territory. Here, if black goes for the kill, this is actually very interesting because white will also go for the kill. Now, obviously, black cannot accept this trade, right? If this whole thing dies, that's definitely game over. This is way bigger than the corner. Here, this is where life and death really matters. Your reading skills really matter. Black has a Tsuji to resist. That is to play the Keima. When white bumps into black, now if black extends out, that would be a mistake because white can simply jump. If black tries to get back, white can Hane. Right? If you cut like this, well, then there's nothing to talk about. I will cut off you here, and these guys are definitely dead. But if black just pulls the stone back, then white can actually connect. And we can see that because white has a tiger's mouth here, it's not possible for black to capture the 3 stones. Right? If you push over here, I can just get out. Right? And we can see the importance of this tiger's mouth. Otherwise, there's a very deadly cutting point. But that's not the end of the story. black can actually extend back, and that's a very nice Tetsuji. White has to block the connection with a jump. Anything else would fail. If you play the empty triangle, black will simply crawl, and you can no longer block this connection back home. So I'll leave you to verify the only move that works is the jump over here. If black extends, then we can block, and because of the tiger's mouth, black cannot connect back home. But black can still resist with the attach. White, Atari, and black plays the making an I here, right? Basically creating a ko over here. If you connect, I connect, well, we're back to square one, right? You're still dead. So black has a Tetsuji here is to create a ko. If white plays the double Atari, black connects, and we can see there's a miai, right? There are two cutting points, and white cannot avoid it. So white has no choice but to fight this ko, and this becomes a ko alive for black, because inside here, there's no way for black to live. The result of this is that when this whole thing becomes a ko alive, that's a very serious problem for black. So black cannot really play like this, right? White still has ko threats on the outside. So black cannot really choose this variation, even if black has a Tetsuji to resist. Black just cannot afford to have 40 points over here in a ko alive situation. Now, at this point, if black decides to just live the group, then white can also live his group, right? So the gain you made here as black is limited because you only captured 2 stones here. White also made a lot of progress here by breaking into your corner. The result of this is that this would be a winning game for white, actually. So when white plays out the attach, black decides to defend the corner. White takes, black pushes, and white blocks that. Black takes back, and white hanes on the first line. And here, black decides to escalate the ko a little bit by blocking over here, trying to threaten life and death. White Atari, and black now has the clamp. For the same reason, black cannot allow white to play the kosumi. So black needs to live the corner, and now white now comes back to Atari here, because there's really taking here is not useful, right? It's completely useless because black can actually Atari and then just extend in, right? We can see that this is going to be black kills white, right? For example, if you Atari here, I can just connect. What can you do here, right? If you extend, then I would just kill the corner. If you attach over here, or it doesn't matter, you can throw in here and then attach. So at this point, I can just go back and capture. When you block, I can hane first. So this is the important thing, right? So when you block here, I can actually hane first. If you don't hane first, then white Atari and then live, right? So at this point, I took some time like, yo, what is happening here? Actually, the reading is really fun because when I hane here, you cannot Atari me because that's a self Atari, right? If you block, it doesn't matter. Then I just connect. You still cannot fill in here, right? It's a very important detail. So white is just dead. All right, so at this point, instead of taking, which is completely useless, white just decides to live the corner, right? Make the corner alive. So he plays this move to make 2 eyes. Black Atari here, strengthening, because otherwise white still has the hane and make a ko, and it's not fun. So black blocks over here. White Atari, black takes the 3 stones, and now white plays the kosumi, right? So white didn't really want to exchange this move because it really strengthens the 5 stones. But his idea is to enclose as much territory as possible over here. So he played Atari and kosumi. Black pushes through, white blocks, and black obviously has to play the hane. Here white cannot really resist. If you resist, then I can Atari and then Atari here, right? This stone cannot escape. White cannot play like that. So white better just extend back and enclose a chunk of the territory here. And black decides to take this stone over here, which is a lot of points in terms of territory. White now connects. That's also a very big move. And black plays the kosumi in the center. This is about mutual expansion and reduction for the 2 moyos, the 2 mini moyos, I would say. The next move, white plays the extension. It looks very nice because It prevents black from coming in, but also prevents black from forming a moyo. The only thing is that this is a gote, and that's the only problem. Maybe a slightly more accurate move is for white to simply block like this. And when black extends, white can simply take the sente to play somewhere else. That would be a more accurate endgame. But what white played was very understandable, right? We're trying to prevent black from getting territory. Black now decides to take this endgame. Otherwise, white cuts here, that's a lot of points. So black blocks, white cuts, and black squeeze here, making sure white cannot cut here. And white hanes into the first line. So this is very important. This is because this is a sente for white. So you have to play that. Otherwise, at some point, if you forget it and black extends over here, black all of a sudden gained a lot of points that you could have taken away, for free. All right, so white hane, black extends, and here white plays the hane and tiger's mouth. Very well played by white. The idea of playing the tiger's mouth is that later on it gives you the option to play the hane once again, right? And this forms a ko, which means that later on you can probably poke this corner with a second line peep. And this is going to be a problem for black to deal with. All right, so in the actual game, black plays the hane here. White now extends over here. And this is really a sente against the corner, right? Because this creates a lot more aji inside black's territory. In the actual game, black decides to play the tiger's mouth. Very understandable. Black wants to be extra safe. Maybe a more accurate move for black to play is actually connect here. And just because this is obviously better in terms of points. But of course, black was worried about something like this, right? This would be very problematic. First of all, you can't really just play a move to try to cut off the connection here because white can play the 3-3. And this is going to be a headache for black, right? Black clamps, white will clamp, black captures, and then we can play the Kosumi over here. And this is going to be a headache for black to deal with. But if now black plays the tiger's mouth, then Ding Hao has to figure out if Liao Yuanhe has enough ko threats or not to play this, right? This is going to be a very serious ko. But the result, well, as it turns out, right, AI would tell you that, well, this is actually not so good for white because white also has a lot of burden, right? If white loses this ko, it's going to be disastrous for white as well. So that's the reason why AI would recommend you to connect over here. But actually, I think this move is just very understandable. Okay, so white now comes back, taking the endgame, and black Atari. That's a sente. White has to capture the 4 stones, and black now attach over here, trying to enclose maximum points. White extends, black blocks. Otherwise, this Atari is very big, so black has to block here. White extends, absolute sente. Black connects, and here white comes back and try to maximize the center. Black blocks, and white plays the hane. Black pushes, white blocks, and at this point, black takes another very big endgame. When white connects here, that's a lot of points, so black takes that away, and this is having a follow-up of Atari on the second line. So it's a very big endgame move. And at this point, so till this point, the game is still like completely equal. It's a 0.5 point game, right? The win rate is literally like 50%, or even maybe depending on the engine you're using, probably it's going to say, oh, it's 55 versus 45. Some will tell you it's 52 versus 48, this is completely irrelevant for human players because it just tells you it's a 0.5 point game. The next move, white plays a peep. This looks like a Tsuji, but actually turns out to be a fake Tsuji, right? It doesn't really work because when black connects over here, white Atari, and then here black exchange 1 move, white has to connect this, and black connects over here. We realize that white cannot really get the 2 stones back, right? So the idea, the reason this was not a great move is because, first of all, you can't get it back, right? So you still die inside. But more importantly, before you played this move, white actually has an Atari and then connect underneath, right? So this would generate a lot of points for white. But when you peep over here, all that possibility is just gone. So actually, this is a point losing move for white. Now, the only thing white was able to get was the Atari over here, right? Versus black's connect. Right? This is the happy thing for white. But overall, this is still a point losing move for white. And at this point, all of a sudden, black is leading, right, by either 0.5 or 1.5 in this game. Still extremely close though. Here, the reason white cannot connect is because black's in a cut here, right? If you try to connect back, first of all, can you connect back? Because I have a ko here, right? But even if black just capture here, it's going to cause problems in white's center, right? So this is not worth it for white to try to drag it back. So in the actual game, white connects, black cuts. So black still managed to get 5 points in here. The next move, white plays the second line Kosumi, trying to, this is a very big move, right? If you don't play, then black plays here, black gained a lot of extra territory. So white plays the tiger's mouth, and at this point, black played the squeeze over here. And I really like what the commentator said about this move, so I'm gonna try to just translate it. So he basically said that this is a move that Ding Hao would probably regret for his whole life. And this this is how big of a blunder this is in the endgame. And the commentator was just saying maybe Ding Hao was just tired at this point, right? It's not about skills. It's not about, it's really not about like practice or skills or anything like that. It's just maybe Ding Hao was really, really exhausted. And and this happens when someone is really, really exhausted. And of course, it's normal, right? You play so many moves, right? You have to calculate throughout, this whole game. And at some point, your brain is just not working and you play a move like this. The reason this is a blunder is because, first of all, it's very clear that this doesn't generate any points for black, right? We can all tell that. Like, this move is not making points for black, obviously. Now, does it reduce white's points? Well, the only thing black is looking at is the Atari over here, right? So if black can get Atari and forcing white to spend moves inside, then you can reduce point. But then when white plays the eye making move, then, you didn't really manage to reduce any points for white, right? So the next move, let's see. Black Atari, white connects. Okay, white has an eye here, which means white never has to connect over here, right? So if white can manage to Atari here, then this stone is just dead inside and white doesn't have to spend a single move on the inside here. So then this becomes a move that generates 0 points. And that's the problem with this move. But when you look at white's move here, it generates 1 point here. So is it just 1 point? No, it's not. Because if, for example, let's illustrate this. Because here the correct move for black to play is something like this. But let's say black doesn't play the best move. Even if black just Kosumi here, when white squeeze over here, then black can extend, and we can see there's some more points for black. When you exchange this move, not only you lost your 1 point here, but you also lost the potential of these points, which end up to be more than 1 point that black lost. So black lost 1 point over here, and then a bit more than 1 point for this region, and his move is 0 point. So black lost more than 2 points, right? Less than 3 points and more than 2 points with this exchange alone. And we all know what 2 points means for a very close game for top professionals like them. And that's exactly why the commentator said that Ding Hao is probably going to regret this move for a long time. I personally really hope he doesn't, right? I hope he just forget about it and then just don't ruminate over it and just keep going, keep playing games and be happy. Because thinking about such a terrible exchange for a professional, it's so it's a torture. It's not fun. I hope he get out of it soon and he becomes happy again. Yeah. So that's all we're gonna say about this move. Let's see what happens. So black Atari over here, white connects, and here black plays Asente. Black now plays the squeeze, hoping that his move can still do something. Unfortunately though, white Atari, black connects. Okay, no point generated for black, and here white plays the tiger's mouth. Still the same story. White kept the point here and kept the other point over here. Black Atari, white connects. See, this is not even a point anymore. Now black has to keep going with the endgame, but at this point, the game becomes a lot clearer for Liao Yuanhe. And especially when Liao Yuanhe managed to get this endgame back, which is absolutely huge. Black obviously gets some compensation back by capturing like this, right? So we generate 2 points plus 1, so there's 3 points, and break some points for white. So that's good. White now pushes over here, black blocks, and white plays the Atari, right? Making sure, this move makes sure that the stone just dies in here. Because later on, you can pretty much consider it, the shape to be like this. White doesn't have to spend a single move inside, right? That's the problem. All right, so at this point, Ding Hao definitely felt very bad. And then he still had to play a few moves. White extends, black connects, white takes in the center, and black now cuts over here, trying to find a co-threat. But when white connects over here, this ends up to be the last move of the game. Ding Hao, as one of the top professionals, he can pretty much count this out in like 20-30 seconds, and he knows he's behind by at least 1.5. He's probably gonna lose by 1.5 or 1.5, something like that. And this code doesn't matter, right? So even if black just even if black wins this code, it still doesn't turn anything around. White is still gonna win this game, so he decided to resign at this point. So I find it to be pretty dramatic, especially the losing move over here. It was hard to understand, and the only reason I can find is really he was just tired and his brain wasn't working, and which happens to all of us. So yeah, so I feel kind of bad for Ding Hao. It was a winning game before that, but then when he played this move and lost more than 2 points, he just lost the game. So, but congratulations to Liao Yuanhe. It's his first time becoming the world champion, I believe, and he has performed extremely well in this tournament. He has defeated Xin Jinsao, Park Zhonghwan, and then in the final, he won against Ding Hao 2-0. Absolutely insane performance by him in this tournament, and he definitely earned it because we have seen a lot of his games where he's super resilient. Sometimes he might be behind, but his opponent never found a moment where he could be crushed, right? Like, so he played extremely resilient, very high quality, and he definitely deserved the championship. So I hope you guys liked and enjoyed my commentary for the Samsung Cup. We have more exciting games coming up for the next week, this week and next week. So stay tuned. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I very regularly comment on these professional games to help you guys improve. I hope to see you guys in the next one.